Welcome to our weekly conversations on artificial intelligence with thought leaders in Africa. My name is Zenzele Ndlovu. I'm the head of research and market development at Machine Learning Africa. We attempt to provide insight into AI and other emerging technologies and their inevitable impact in transforming business and the broader society. Please check out our upcoming event, the AI Business Conference. You can register for free at aiconference.co.za.
Hello everyone and welcome to our weekly video recording where Zenzele and I speak to people who work in the field of smart technology. We listen to people through different lenses, which I think is good for us all. Remember to sign up for these videos and to look out for them. We've got some amazing guests coming up, and we do have an amazing guest today. And Zenzele, let me hand it over to you to introduce us to Alistair.
Thank you so much, Johan. Indeed, we are very pleased to have Alistair Hofert today, the co-founder of Synapse Squared. Alistair is a speaker and thought leader on cognitive and intelligent automation. He holds an executive Master of Science from HEC Paris and various postgraduate professional certifications from Harvard Business School, Houghton Business School, Yonsei University, the University of Virginia Darden School of Business, with specializations in disruptive innovation, competitive strategy, design thinking, deep learning for business, and digital transformation. Alistair, thank you for joining us and welcome to our conversation.
Thank you, Zenzele. It's really a pleasure. As I mentioned a bit earlier, it's really a delight to engage with you guys. I mentioned it's great to see good humans that are focusing on opening up AI. What you're doing with your channel is great stuff. So it's my privilege to be with you. I'll share some thoughts in terms of like what keeps me interested and occupied at the moment. There's a couple of ventures that I'm busy building at the moment, and my focus has moved away from being just pure or narrow AI. I started off in the beginning with robotic process automation, then machine learning, then natural language processing, generation understanding, computer vision, and then narrow AI. And where my head is at nowadays is building organizations from scratch. And the reason I look at that is because we frequently hear people talk about narrow AI being the new electricity. And one of the biggest things where I think there's a missed opportunity worldwide, not just in South Africa, is that people run projects and they think that they can sprinkle machine learning on the business and stuff happens. Most businesses that I work with today, there's two kinds. There's like corporates, which are massive and they're slow moving machines, and they run projects in silos, which is quite tough to do. And then you get like small businesses that can scale super quickly. And I spend quite a lot of time there because I generally look at what problem are we trying to solve, and then have a look at all of those technologies and sciences that I mentioned. So you look at the market and see there's an opportunity for something new to be built. Payment systems across Africa, teaching in Xhosa, in Zulu, like chatbots need to mature and turn into conversational AI. That means I don't have to speak English anymore, but you won't think that way unless you build a business that needs to be open for everybody. And this forces you to now think, because I have access to natural language processing, generation, and understanding, I can conquer those languages and make it easy for people to have education. Why don't I partner with like a super vendor and say, if I'm going to put anything above the glass on a phone, will they sponsor something like that? And then we will build the interface that allows people to get education in townships. Why do you have to climb in a bus or a taxi? And why do you have to go sit in a concrete building when you can put an education system above the glass in your local language. And I'm super passionate about that because the power of AI can be good, which is where I focus in creating new businesses. And that is so exciting. Imagine putting education and healthcare. Some of the things that I've done is not just with Synapse Squared. I've created something called EXO Ventures, and I have a partner who's helping me look at things like nutriponics, 3D printing of tunnels for agri. But you use machine learning on top of that to monitor the temperature, the output, the predicted yield on a tunnel, which is so different to when you speak to AI practitioners. They go into all the detail like, do you know the difference between a convoluted neural network and like a recurrent neural network? Now, we know the one's good for vision, the one's good for language. That's not as fun as saying, how do I put the education in the hands of 1 million people? How do I create an autonomous organization that runs on its own, but people in South Africa can own a part of that? Now you can have something which is a machine that is community driven. Like, I would put my hand up. It's exciting. It makes economics accessible to the masses, not just the top 5% of people that will do the kind of mental karate around clever things with AI, which you can. But that's not as fun for me as like, how do you give back and build and create and like do cool stuff with other people? So that's kind of, the headlines of where my head is going. The second major item that has come to my attention was smart cities. And I was asked to head up one of their functions. It's a global thing. But my challenge back to that global organization was to say, in Africa, we might not look like Dubai or Singapore and have these big shiny buildings. We've got massive land. There's 1.4 billion people on this continent. We're not going to build 50 smart cities. We need inclusive cities. And why don't you use AI and together with a smart city, we can start with like tourism, have a smart game reserve is something I'm looking at. Not just the rhino poaching, but the whole supply chain of when that German tourist clicks, yes, I'm going to go and stay at Madikwe, we already need to have the entire supply chain of like eggs, the meat, the travel, the transport, the IoT devices that monitor that and map that into a digitized business, which has AI on top of it in the local language so that people can interact with foreigners. That's just like one of 50 things we can do together.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alistair, for that. You mentioned a number of important things. One, you mentioned that many times we find people implementing these technologies in silos. And you often talk about these exponential technologies coming together to create exponential organization. And I actually wanted to ask you what do you mean by exponential organizations? If you can unpack us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot to say about that. This is what made me shift my thinking in the past 1.5 or 2 years. And there are two big things to understand about an exponential organization. Number one, it's driven by purpose. It's not shareholder capital or profit or money or that old capitalism system. For example, if you have a look at EXO Ventures, the business I've created recently, you've got the name and underneath that I put the purpose. We exist to amplify human capability for good. That's why that business exists from scratch. That's one. And it's called a massive transformative purpose. The second thing is the definition of exponential organization is that on average, it will have 10x either the performance, revenue, or profitability or impact than its peers. So that's the definition of what an exponential organization is. There's a lot of work that we do with OpenEXO in the US and Singularity University. And about 6 years ago, Salim Ismail wrote an awesome book around how to build an exponential organization. So I've defined what it is. You have a purpose. It has a 10x return. And then there are 10 attributes that sit around that, which are specifically designed to do two things: access abundance, and then to manage abundance. Abundance, we often hear about like Airbnb. Marriott has to build a whole hotel to put someone in. Airbnb just puts something on their site, and that's called a leveraged asset. Same with Uber, etc., etc. There's another one which is called staff on demand, like a gig economy. If the three of us built a business and called X, whatever it is, we love you Africa.ai, I don't know, and we create that organization. To make us exponential, you don't need 100 people on a payroll, but I need access to a gig economy super fast. Okay. For example, so that's just kind of in a nutshell. It's been tested and done, like we've done work with Black & Decker, Visa, Procter & Gamble. If I look at Procter & Gamble, their CEO has asked all of the leadership team, the entire senior leadership team, to put this into their business in terms of the attributes and how to change like a slow-moving legacy organization into something which is exponential. There's about 130 or 140 organizations around the world that have successfully deployed this methodology, including cognitive.
Alistair, what I often read and hear about the doomsday scenario of where this technology is going to take us, which I think is possible. But I know that there's a lot of good happening. I listen to some people, but it's just what I love about the things you're saying is there's such a positive and opportunity to do good, really do good. And I love that about what you're saying. I just wish there was more airtime and more press and more that almost a critical mass can move from this. We're really afraid of this tech to just look at all the great things we can do. How do we get people more positive about this technology? I'm talking about the average guy on the street, if you would.
There's two things. Build a movement, which I think yourself and Zenzele are doing at the moment. You're starting with the channel. Instead of running projects, appeal to the heart first, not the head. Like, I want to get involved with Johan and Zenzele. They're doing this cool stuff and it's got a mission. The purpose is X, which removes the fear. And I agree with you, Johan. It can go wrong, and we've seen things that can be used for incorrect purposes, which is not great. And I believe that should only be the 5%. The way we can get people around that is truly, for example, whatever your channel is or your communication to the world is to say, our purpose is to, let's say, democratize artificial intelligence. In other words, I'm making it easy. I'm making it approachable. Human-centered design. I'm just throwing some words out there. What it does is it makes AI so much more warm and approachable compared to now there's super complicated things and doomsday, and I don't know the difference between the technologies and the sciences and all of that. If people like us start with that and say, okay, how do I deliver on a purpose to democratize AI in South Africa and Africa? Immediately a community will come and say, this is like a campfire. It's not complicated. Remove the fear of complexity around AI and then slowly grow people on that journey to say, you're not listening to a channel. You're becoming part of a movement. And that's one of the most powerful things in business that I've seen in exponential organizations is community and crowd. It is truly a highly impactful thing compared to this complicated monster, and it might go wrong and things like that. Yes, it can. But it is our duty as human-centered AI practitioners and business builders to pull people in and make it approachable. And you can feel kind of, you need that energy compared to the cold technical approach. I think. I don't have all the answers yet.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think purpose is very important. You mentioned that when embarking on these digital transformations or embarking in any of the awareness or whatever engagement, there must be a clearly defined purpose, which is very imperative. Johan often says that before you automate, understand your processes. And it's very important for organizations to understand that the technologies that they want to implement will help them realize the objective or the purpose they are driving towards. And maybe going back a little bit to smart cities, It was a time when President Ramaphosa spoke about smart cities and all that. And I was wondering if is there any, obviously you have some insight into what is happening in the African continent, in South Africa, as far as smart cities are concerned. Is there any clearly defined objective and maybe some cohesive smart cities plan or roadmap that we following, or as a country and continent, for that matter?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two places in Africa that I think are worth paying attention to. If I look at Kigali in Rwanda, they are trying to build the equivalent of the new Silicon Valley in Africa over there. What I love about that is that the community, the citizens, and the government are pumping cash into that machine, which is supposed to be like an innovation hub. People go there to learn and build. And like if you look at Silicon Valley, there's, I think, 13,000 startups. That's like a beehive. It's just growing and creating. And that's one of the quickest places I noticed that's mushrooming in Africa. The second one is just down the road in Durban. We had the executive mayor online. We had a launch with World Business Angels, Smart Cities. What is beautiful about that is the vision. We have many challenges in Africa and South Africa, but that city, when you listen to that mayor talk, you can see that he cares and he understands. And the roadmap of Durban, for example, is heartwarming for me, because they want to have something called a smartness economy. That doesn't mean we're just going to build big, shiny buildings. Yeah. You might have, for example, IoT devices on bins. So you don't have, and when that thing is full, you notify like a central center and you manage waste across the entire city, for example. Air quality and pollution, sanitation using machine learning on like water structures and purification plants. Yeah. I think that Durban is worth watching. And then the third one is, I noticed there is a smart city coming up in Lanseria. And I can't remember the year, if it's like 2035 or 2040, but yeah, that if you guys just go and have a look on Google, that is a very good place for people who are resident in Gauteng to become part of that and contribute and get pulled into that economy. And I think it's really worth looking forward to. And, if you work in the narrow AI space and smart cities, there is such a lot that people in the AI domain can offer, because you're building from the ground up now. Yeah. Traditionally in business, you'll meet a corporate. I'll show you the analogy now, and they'll talk about process automation. Like the first question I ask is, do you even need the process? Like, why are you doing it? Forget like intelligent automation. When you come to a smart city, those are processes like traffic lights, supply chain, food, going to school, blah, blah, blah. There is so much that we can do around not only autonomous vehicles, but you can use computer vision to keep the city safe. Why must you hire 5,000 police? Not that we want to remove jobs, but you want to have a safe city. Yeah. Like you can't have eyes everywhere, but maybe you can do something like that with smart city design, and you put in the computer vision experts and you have a city dashboard. That's not a big shiny building. It just keeps citizens safe using AI. Very nice, eh? If I go to a retail center, it doesn't have to be fancy, but I want to have a conversation about, hey, like, where do I get the cheapest loaf of bread in the smart city? And I talk to a piece of glass and it will answer me in my language. It's quite possible to do that. We've got billboards. You just need to bring in the AI practitioners to design an avatar, which I can relate to. So that's a lot of words about smart cities, but the potential is certainly there. And to summarize, those are the three cities I think that are worth paying attention to now for people if they want to get involved. Like, what do I do next week, Monday morning? Get involved in that, in the remote world, if you like.
Sure, Alistair. It just again shows you what's happening in our country that we're not often aware about. Great innovation, great companies. Maybe just to change tack a little bit, I read on your LinkedIn profile that you are a member of the MIT Technology Review Global Panel. which interests me greatly. Will you maybe tell us a bit about that? What does it entail?
Sure. So there's a group of about, I think it's 30 to 50 people dotted around the world, and they will ask us to contribute to thought leadership in terms of topics that are coming out, interview us via online surveys to say, do you think that ethical AI will be mature in the next 6 months, 12 months, 1.5 years? What are the biggest threats that you will see in technology? How do you help businesses understand converging technologies, which goes way beyond just AI? It's like 3D printing and biomimicry and all of that jazz. And that panel basically has a look at articles that are going to go out into the public, and it creates things like white papers and thought leadership from around the globe. Like, where is the world headed as far as technology goes? In short.
Good. All right. Thank you so much, Alistair, for those insights and sharing us information about what's happening as far as smart cities concerned, and how we can actually, grow our businesses with these exponential technologies and bring them together. And it's very imperative that we all embrace the technology. As I always say, that it's either you're part of the disruption or you get disrupted. So we all have to move together and participate in this digital transformation journey. Alistair, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
It's a delight to be back with you guys. I think you're doing good things, and I hope that you can build up an awesome movement and community and a crowd in South Africa and Africa. What a delight to speak with you.
Thank you so much.